Hey tribe. So in the previous video, I spoke about working on the inner standing and being able to process the information from a neutral perspective, and then really understand it and process it from your perspective, so that you can make it your own and really deal with what it is that you are being exposed to. In today's video, we're talking about healing from your traumas. Now, this is a tough one, because you will have to go into the triggers, unpack them, understand them, process them, and hopefully start healing from them. But because of these traumas, many of them have been so significant, so traumatic, so hurtful, that we can't go there. We refuse. It's just too painful or whatever, and it's difficult. And on this process, it's interesting that in the way that I've mapped it, it takes you to the halfway mark. In this whole process that I've mapped, it takes you to the halfway mark, is when you have to start healing from your traumas. And what this really means is that you have to allow yourself to explore the moments in time that were traumatic and that you might have experienced as traumatic. And it takes you to really difficult times in your life. It takes you to dark places in your life, experiences, things that were really, really challenging, and sometimes even unbearable. And because of that, you might start at the top layers, and you might go to some of the less traumatic and things that played out, and you can unpack that a little bit. And sometimes you're only able to dip your big toe in there, and it's too much, and you have to kind of like cry and feel and get there and bring it to the surface and try and understand what happened there and why you were triggered and so on. And you'll have to go through those experiences on a level a few times, so that you can slowly but surely heal that and open it up. And those moments in time can only really heal from the inside. And it's difficult because you'll have to open them up. There's either a scab, or there's if it's not really healed, sometimes it's so deeply repressed that it's covered up with a scar, but on the inside it's not really healed. And a lot of times those have to be reopened, so that you can really kind of understand why you are behaving and reacting the way that you are, so that you can almost be released from them. Those traumas and those things that happen to us in our lives is what I refer to as, or the unhealed, become unhealed because we don't heal from many of them. And when we cover them up and we don't process them, and we just carry on and load up and whatever else, those festering, unhealed wounds within us are painful. And sometimes we experience things in our lives that might come in as a trigger, and it triggers that hurtful space. Think about inflammation in the body, or when we get pimples sometimes, it's not been squeezed, and some people might say don't squeeze them, but you can feel they tender, they sore, and now you bump yourself in a certain place or whatever, and if you touch it, it's tender. And that's kind of what the triggers mean to us. There's unhealed parts of our lives, of our soul and our psyche and of ourselves, that are not healed. And when we bump them and something happens in our lives that triggers them, that hurt and that pain flares up again, and then we go like, oh, and then we respond and like, how dare you? How do you? Why do you do this to me? And you kind of like react as a defense. But the whole objective to heal from the traumas is to be able to go and say, wait a minute, I felt a pain here when that happened. And why did I feel a pain there? Let me go and explore that. And you need to be able to open it up and go there and see where that pain came from. And there's so many defining moments for ourselves that happened. I've explored a couple of them, and in my previous videos I talk about them. There was a moment in time, I remember I was about 4 years old, 3 years old, and I was just trying to get my mom's reaction or attention, and she snapped at me in that moment, and I couldn't understand why, and I think it was the first time she ever did that. But I know that she was busy, and I think it was month end and something happened, and she was busy with accounts and bills that needed to be paid, but I know that she was under pressure. But that moment of response that she had with me really created this angst, this anxiety, this like, what did I do wrong? And I know that that was a defining moment. I've spoken about other times in my life where, my mom, when I came home with a 98% in an exam, and my mom said to me, what is wrong with me? Why couldn't I get 100? That really gave me kind of like triggered me, and these defining moments where people in your life say something to you or don't say something to you. People act in a certain way. They do or do not do certain things to you that really hurt you. And these things can be different for different people. And some people might react to these things differently based on, who we are and what we experience. But even in our adulthood, we could have gone through abuse, neglect, manipulation, rejection. And these things are real. And you'll have to be really kind to yourself during this process. And that's why self-love is so important, because in those moments of vulnerability where you are going to have to firstly sometimes realize that you were traumatized by something, and then heal from that and see it for what it is, you'll have to go and many a times re-experience that pain or that hurt. And many a times you'll have to fully experience this. You can't just put another band-aid on it and go like, oh, you exist there, I can't go there, I'm not ready, and I don't want to feel it, and then just cover it up again and carry on with life. If you really want to be set free from those traumas and release those demons, you'll have to go there and feel them. Some of them cut deep. And many times you might have to curl into a ball. You'll have to eat your mood food. You might to maybe soothe yourself with maybe a cookie or a tub of ice cream. Put on that movie, get a hug. Do whatever you need to do to allow yourself to feel that emotion. If you really allow yourself to go there, sometimes it might bring in, an anger or a frustration, or even those hurtful kind of painful moments where you cry. I've experienced some of that over the last 3 years, and I've just allowed myself to go there. And I have cried. Times I've cried uncontrollably, just releasing some of that pain, that trauma. And even though you cognitively can understand what happened or why people did what they did, and if you really become objective about it, you can almost sometimes justify their actions because you're so aware of why people do what they do. And you can almost be neutral about it. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you've allowed your pain to come to the forefront and have allowed yourself to go there. And to truly do that, you'll have to open up And it means that you'll have to be vulnerable with yourself. You'll have to acknowledge that this pain exists. Sometimes you can't process it alone, which means that you might have to talk to someone about it. And we don't always have access to therapists. So sometimes we have to open up to people that we trust and that we love and that we care about. And sometimes just sharing that with somebody else just allows that to come to the forefront. And you need to allow yourself to open up to that emotion, and whatever comes up, allow it to flow. Don't suppress it again, because it means that you're not healing from it. And the only way that you can heal is to feel. You can't think your way through that. You can't just go and open it up and go like, whoa, that's too much, and then just kind of like, and just carry on again as like, yeah. And you can see my body's response, like just even going there is hard, because there's an ache, there's a pain here that we know exists, and you can hear that my voice changes and my throat closes up and whatever, because there's pain. And I don't even know all of them. When they come up, I try and go there and I try and explore them and see what comes up. And sometimes you need to go through a level of therapy. Like I said, you sometimes have to talk to somebody. You might sometimes, hello Cody, it's the first time he's making an appearance. Hello Cody. But you'll also, sometimes people explore going into psychedelic journeys, magic mushrooms and that kind of thing, to be able to explore those parts of ourselves, to see where those triggers come from so that we could heal from them. So those are important. So during this process of healing your traumas, you have to be kind to yourself. And it's a very delicate time. And you need to look after yourselves. And look after yourselves. And I'm sending you so much love and light when you start exploring that, because you really need to apply self-love. All right. Okay. On that note, I'm sending you all so much love and light, and look after yourselves.